Hi, and welcome to Dear Career. I'm Julie, and I'm here with Nikki, and we have created Dear Career just to give you a little bit of a background in case you haven't joined us before, based on the old advice columns, where someone would send in a dilemma or an issue or a frustration that they were having, and then someone would answer that for them. So while we do our best to provide you an answer, it's more a talking point for us, and hopefully we can give you some good pointers and some good tips on where to go. So I'm going to hand you over to Nikki, who has today's question for us.
Yes, this was a really good one that someone sent me on LinkedIn, and they said, Nikki, I have years of experience. I know I'm really good at what I do, but I'm not getting any interviews. Like, what am I doing wrong? What should I do? And I thought, well, this kind of covers probably 75% of the folks who tend to reach out to us. So I'll
Yeah,
kick it off to you to start, Julie.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess some people who are asking these questions are talking about the fact that they have already applied for a position and they're not getting the interviews back from it. So, I mean, there are so many ways that we can cover, and we're probably not going to have enough time to do everything in this session today. But it's typically the resume. It could be, that they are not they're applying when there's already 200 or 300 people that have applied before them. There are so many different things, but if we focus first on the resume, the main thing that I see is that many people are using it as a diary, maybe for their career history that they've had, and they're trying to sell every single little piece of themselves within their resume, regardless of what it is that needs to be seen for that specific role. So you've heard me say it many, many times before, and so has everyone that has worked with me. It needs to be relating to your audience, your potential employer. What is it they're looking for, and how do you translate that in your resume? Because if you're just telling your resume from your perspective and saying, look, I've done a really good job at this, this is my experience. Look, I've worked 5 years here, but you're not really thinking about how that applies to the specific role that you're applying for, then you're already missing a trick. You're already putting yourself on the back foot there. And there are ways that we can look at that and ways that we can deal with that. But that is the first thing that I would say. Are you addressing the pain points of the role that you are applying for straight away so that your potential employer can see them and understand them? I don't know what else
Um,
you've got to add to that, Nikki, before maybe we move on to some other bits. But yeah, you probably
yeah.
see the same thing.
Yeah, I thought that was great. The HR lens in me with an HR background usually starts with asking folks, what level are you at and what level are you applying at?
Mm,
Typically, folks that are struggling to find interviews, there may be like they're making a change. Maybe they want a leadership role. Maybe they want a different industry. My
mm,
example to folks is like if you're an ER nurse applying to be an ER nurse at a different hospital, short of any kind of like anti-competition thing or something you sign, probably won't have a hard time getting something.
yeah.
Similar industry, it's like in need, things like that. So level as well as market needs would be the first thing I would want to know about and ask them about. And then also, what are the needs of the role, which I think you just really hit on in terms of like, what does that employer need? Do you really understand what the needs of the role are? Do you understand who and what your competition is? So, do
Mm,
they all have MBAs, for example, or do they all have, they worked at their ex Facebook or whatever it may be? What is your competition? Because it's really important to understand the level, the needs of the role, and the competition in order to have a resume that stands out. Because if
mm,
you're only focused on yourself, which I think is this is exactly what you're saying too, you're focused on yourself and your background, like nobody cares. They care
yeah.
about their needs and they care about why they might be more interested in talking to you than someone else who looks equally strong on paper. And
Yeah.
so I would look for those gaps. And then what is your path to fill them? Because it may be that this isn't the right type of role you should be applying for. Maybe
Yeah.
you need a different one first and then you go for that role. I hear that a lot
Mm,
with folks that may want leadership or they want to get into a different industry. It's like, well, maybe you need a different path to get there. And so that might look a little different, as well as what else could you do to fill on your resume? Are there certifications you need? Maybe you have everything, but you're just not advertising and promoting the right things. And it's just a matter of that. So that's one like I would start there. So hopefully that helps
yeah.
a little bit. And then from there, what would you suggest to folks, Julie? Because like now it's like, okay, that's great, but what do I put on there?
Yeah, I think you remember, I mean, we still say to people, because I still see the old objective statement, it used to be on resumes. I mean, back 20 years ago when I first started writing resumes, the objective statement was something that was big back then, and it was listing what the person applying for the role wanted from that position. It was all about, what the company can do for them rather than what they can do for the place they're applying for. And, sometimes I still see that kind of mental side coming through where people really struggle to get around what it's not what I can do for you, it's not what you can do for me, it's what I can do for you. It's that whole mental attitude that's difficult to change, especially if you're in a senior position as well. You're often in the mindset of, well, I have worked really hard to get where I am, and so surely you should recognize the skills that I am bringing to you. But if you aren't really putting that down for them, or if you aren't showing what's changed because you were in that role, you are just expecting people from the general write-up that you are putting on your resume to go, oh, okay, that person sounds good and they've had lots of experience in a similar company. You're still not putting in the effort that they need to see why you moved the needle, the impacts that you created when you were somewhere. And that's what they're looking for in relation to the position that you are applying for. Typically nowadays, I would say.
I agree. And I had made a note. I can almost guarantee when people tell me this without even seeing their resume that they're lacking metrics, they're lacking context, and they're lacking outcomes. Even my 17-year-old needs to have some metrics of success on his resume. He needs to have context and he needs to have outcomes. Like right now, he's working at Best Buy. They absolutely have metrics there. And so when someone in a senior director level role of, let's say, marketing or even regulatory, whatever it may be, and they say, well, my company doesn't really track that. I do hear that a lot, and I do believe that, or I don't have access to that data, which is totally fair. But you still have to be able to figure out a way to have the metrics, context, and outcomes on there through numbers, through explaining like this problem and what I did led to this. Typically, when I see this question without seeing their resume, I'm guessing it looks like a job description that's way too long and boring, just to kind of be more frank about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And also we have to remember as well that nowadays, and this is something that we say all the time, the job search itself is not only an application exercise. Even if you've got your metrics and everything else on there, which is I highly recommend, and everybody has some level of proof that they can show, but it's also about your visibility. It's about conversations that you might be having. I know everyone cringes when it comes to LinkedIn and networking on there, but it's about the conversations that you're having, not just on LinkedIn, but with your groups around you, your friendship groups, your professional groups. It's about conversations you're having with them. It's about referrals, and having that extra layer matters so much more than people ever give it credit for. It's the application is almost the cherry on top, and all the other layers underneath it have to be done before you apply. And I know that sounds probably a little bit bizarre to some people who are just entering the process right now, but that's why I talk about building out company lists, learning about companies, learning about who works in there already, who you can build connections with, all these things. There's so many small things, and they don't have to be time consuming, but they all can help you in your job search. Because I think I read recently that I think it was 70%, it might even be higher than that, but 70% of jobs are actually coming more from the referral side rather than applicants on the traditional job market side now. So I don't know if you've got the statistics around that or not, if you read the same article as me, but it was the beginning of this year. And at that particular time, it makes me think, well, so many of us are in that, I guess, mindset from many years ago, where it's like you apply for a job and then you wait to hear back. And that's just not good enough anymore. It's all the stuff that you do before that. It's building those connections and then thinking, okay, once I have applied, have I then got a follow-up to that as well? Am I following up a week after I have applied? Is there someone that I have sent my application to that I can then reach out to with a short email? What else can you do? It's that, and what else question, and what else? And once you have exhausted that, then I feel like you're on a better path than you were before. But never just think it's just an application. If you are just applying and sending your resume off without doing any tweaks as to the impact that you can make, you haven't put the metrics in, you're not proving your value, you're just sending your resume off, which is perhaps a diary of your work experience in the past. You haven't done any of the other work in that as well beforehand, or had conversations with people, then those are things that may help you at this stage.
I so agree. And I'm going to say, given that they have years of experience, they are probably not like 22 and, kind of just starting out life. So my hunch is when they need a doctor or they need a hairstylist or they need a
Mm,
vendor around their house, they probably have a neighborhood group chat where they're asking what plumber do you recommend? If they're wondering like what summer camp to send their kid to, they're probably asking around like, was this a good one? And so
yeah,
it's always mind blowing to me that people like drag their feet as much as they do on networking because it's how we operate 90% of
mm,
our life. Like it's
yeah,
probably very unlikely you're going to have a surgeon do something on your body that you haven't heard good things about. And
yeah,
so I'll even simplify it. Like if you have kids going through the college search process, mine's not there yet, but if they are starting this freshman year, most of them are finding their roommates either through friends or they're going on Instagram and looking for people they kind of have things in common with.
yeah.
They think it might be a good fit. Employers are no different. They
That's
may
right.
have 10 equally great people on paper at the right level, all the right metrics, all the right things that we just talked about. But if five people have vouched for this one particular candidate who interviewed really well, who the heck would you hire? And
Yeah.
so some of it's happenstance by networking. You just get to be in the right time at the right place. You start to build these relationships, but you have to accept that that's how it is. And ultimately, how do you hire? It's also funny because when I
Mm,
have clients who kind of struggle with this, that they're like looking to change industry or they're looking to do this. And I say to them, well, walk me through how you did your last few hires. Like, what did you look for? And all the things that they say are all the things that I'm like, okay, that's what the next employer thinks. They don't want to train you on the healthcare industry. They don't care that like you're manufacturing to healthcare jump. They have 20 million other people with healthcare. And you just explained to me how in manufacturing, why you looked for other manufacturing candidates and why you didn't care about healthcare. And
yeah.
so it's understanding those nuances. And the best way to overcome those is through networking, is through the relationship building. And even if you're looking to stay in all of the same things, those people vouching for you are no different than you looking for a plumber and hiring the one that three out of the five people recommended.
Mm,
It's kind of how life works. And I get it. It's a lot easier to sit behind your desk and to apply and to not do these things. But then I would say, then how committed are you to finding a new role?
that's a
Do
great
you
question.
really want one? And even if you need one right now because you've been laid off or other unfortunate circumstances have driven you to that, then what more will it take to convince you that this is what you have to do? And I don't know what to tell you if you can't dig there and figure out what's going on. And I've heard that like I'm an introvert, I'm uncomfortable. I've had folks with such severe social anxiety they hadn't left their house in months, and we still got them to that point. So this is where I would work with a coach on what are your metrics, what are your outcomes, and what are
Yeah.
your results, because they can help pull that out from you. And then I would work with a coach on I would get a strategic networking plan that you put together maybe on your own through a book, through AI, whatever. Like get the bare bones there so you have an understanding of it, but then work with a coach on, okay, how do we actually implement this? Help me keep accountable on this and help me overcome roadblocks because
Yeah.
that's where networking goes awry. The first few may go okay, and now suddenly people aren't calling you back or you don't know what to do with it from there. So it was a very like long-winded road of getting there, but I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Julie, or what kind of that leads you to think before we wrap up.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And I think everything that you've said there, holding that mirror up to yourself and asking yourself, am I really doing everything that I need to do here in order to make my applications stick, to make my applications be seen? Am I really doing what I can do is a really great thing to think about because often, like you say, we are sitting behind our desk. We are going, oh, well, I've sent 10 applications today. I've sent my resume off to five different companies that are advertising, and then they sit and drum their fingers. And it is really challenging because there are so many things, if we haven't had to network or do anything in the past. But as you say, we all network in some form or another. And it's the pressure that we put on ourselves. I think when we do network, just when we think of this as an extra layer to our job application, the pressure that we put on our shoulders to network is what gives us that ick feeling, is what makes it seem so awful to us. But it's like anything, the more you do it, the more comfortable you become by doing it as well. It really, it's like ripping that band-aid off. You have to do it. You have to get out there, be seen, because if you are not being seen, you're not going to get seen. It's just as clear as that. You have to think, okay, well, what else can I do, like I said, and what else can I do to make sure that my applications are in front of the right people, perhaps people that I have networked with before, or who have referrals that I know. All of these things can add to you being seen and your applications becoming more visible to the right people. But also, as we always throw out there, Nikki, there is a flip side to it as well. And sometimes it is that there are just many people. You might be in a position
Yeah.
which is hugely popular, and there are vast amounts of people who are excellent at that particular role, and you just aren't getting seen because there are too many people who are of the same level as yourself, have had just as good experience as yourself. And so you have to think at that particular time, if you are in a position and you are fortunate enough to be applying for roles while you're already in a position, how long are you going to give yourself before perhaps looking at another avenue or looking at your own role where you are just now and maybe enhancing it there, promotion, etc. You have to think of that.
Yeah.
And you also have to think about if I am applying for roles and 6 months down the line, I still haven't found something, what's my next plan of action? You know, if you're out of work right now, what else can you do? You know, whether it's volunteering, because again, I'm going to say it, sometimes when we, you know, are volunteering, sometimes that's when the best referrals come along. That's when the best people that we meet who
Yeah.
can refer us out to. And it's amazing how many people I've worked with who have been in that situation. So thinking outside that box and really asking yourself, am I truly doing everything that I need to do to be seen at this point?
I like that. I'll just end on, it's like a swimming analogy. I don't know where I kept hearing this one on some training lately, but you can't learn to swim by someone telling you. Like you can learn to swim by doing it. And
Yeah,
so you have to jump in the water, you have to do these things, and there's not one way to do it. You're going to have to tweak it in a way that works for you. And I think that that's such a good point on the role part because the job market has changed.
yeah,
And if the opportunities aren't there, you do have to figure out, okay, what's next? Just like swimming, like maybe this one particular teaching method is just not working for you. You have
yeah,
to try a different method or try something different. And so you may have to look at different things. And so I think that that's a fair point because I'm seeing that a lot, especially with like middle management roles. There's just, things have gotten harder. I mean, it'd be the same thing if you had 20 plumbers in a 1 mile radius, they're not
yeah,
all
it's
going to
true.
make it. Like this is like a new restaurant goes up in town and you're like, well, we have too many and they just don't stand out. It's just the same as those types of things. So figure out where your niche is and where you can
Yeah,
stand out and where that's needed
yeah,
and keep doing the work and the networking and making sure you look strong on paper and it will pay off.
yeah,
You just can't give up and you have to really like, what are you willing to do to get there? So I think those were such good tips, Julie. I wish this person luck. I hope that some
yeah,
of this can help them and some others. I can promise you from working with clients and candidates over the years, it will help.
yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree, Nikki. And again, thank you to the person who has sent that question in to us. And as always, that's what Dear Career is about. It's about you, it's about your dilemmas, your questions. So if you have them, then do send them through to us either by email or by direct message on our socials, and we will do our best to answer them. And of course, sometimes you know, you want to be anonymous, but also if you want us to give your name as to who it is asking the question, we'll happily do so as well. So send them through, and we will absolutely look forward to seeing you on our next session of Dear Career.
Thank you. Bye, Julie. Thank you,
See you.
everyone.
Bye.